Sometimes we get so forward looking that we often don't take a moment to look backwards. So on today's episode of the 52 Cues podcast, with it being the final episode of the year, and as I'm recording this, it is December 31st, 2024, I thought it'd be a really good idea to take a look backwards on my own 2024, what I accomplished, what I learned, things which were going on personally, what was going on in the 52 Cues community, what gear did I pick up, and what other milestones might we have reached. Plus, we're going to take a peek into 2025, talk about some things that are coming and some of my own personal goals. So, that's what we're doing today on this week's episode of the 52 Cues podcast. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, your weekly insight into the world of production, library, and sync music. Whether you're brand new to the industry or maybe you have tons of placements, I promise you are in the right place. As always, thank you so much to the family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52 Cues who really do keep all of this going. If you want to learn more about how you can not only join the community, but also score a ton of extra perks like live streams and workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, all designed to help you on your journey as a production or sync music composer. And be sure to stick around because I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later in today's episode. Also later in today's episode, I am going to be featuring a new cue, my last cue of 2024, which is an epic hip-hop collaboration written for the March Madness tournament on CBS. So you definitely want to stick around for that. So let's talk about my 2024. And like I said, I'm going to break these down into different categories, creatively, professionally, the 52 Cues community, things that are going on personally, maybe things that I have learned, maybe some gear that I've gotten over the course of the year, and some personal milestones and some community milestones. So let's just talk about creatively. First, I wrote 67 cues, or rather, I wrote and these cues were published. And it's always really interesting for me. It's a little bit like time travel, and I love having this playlist. I keep a playlist on SoundCloud, which is just for me. I don't share it necessarily with the public unless something makes air, and then I'll turn it public. But I just love going back through and seeing kind of where my head was at and seeing the things I was involved with. And so starting out in January, I was wrapping up a World Tension album that was published up to Discovery Channel. And so they had great titles like Shanghai and Dry. Here's one called Big Bhangra Theory. This was Indian Intrigue. Yeah, so that was a cool album. I really enjoyed that. And then in January and February, I was writing music for a golf documentary, a Masters movie documentary. Every year, the folks at the Augusta National make a documentary from much of the footage and everything from the CBS broadcast. And so I think this is my 6th year writing music for this. Really cool opportunity. It's not a scoring gig, but it's like bespoke music. And so one of the things that they wanted this year, on top of the standard kind of sportsy stuff that they usually get with these kind of things, heroicism and intrigue and drama, they also specifically asked this year for cues which were, I think, like Tenet was an inspiration, and 1917. And so that kind of pulsing, high stress, very, very ominous. And so getting to explore that space and doing the reference work for all of those was really, really cool. This is called Shell Shock Redemption. Here is Stressed to the Nines. Again, just, yeah, I was going for that pulsing element. But then I had the remainder of the album, which was very kind of either uplifting or intriguing, very Thomas Newman-y, which I love. Okay. And so that brings us to March Madness, and I loved getting to collaborate with Chris Smith, aka Mad About Nothing, and we did a handful of cues. So this is Bring 'Em to the Brink. That's I Never Back Down, and You Won't See Us Coming. You won't see us coming. And so you can see, if you look at my playlist here, you can see there's some overlap. So I'm wrapping up an album and then the next album starts. And that can be a little disjointed, just changing gears, but working with collaborators has really helped with that. And then I did my album of European cafe dramedy music. And the concept for this album was music, dramedy cues, which had little, plucky strings and accordion, but that's an actual melodica that I've kind of made sound like an accordion with little hip hop beats. And so I did some French cafe, I did some Greek cafe, and some Italian cafe. So this is Escargot to Be Kidding Me. Here's an Italian one. What Are You, Alfredo? All the while still continuing writing epic hip hop for sports. And so that album continued to go on. And then is my world hip hop album that I did. This was also for Discovery Channel. This is Take It on the Young Chin. And so again, I was thinking different parts of the world. So obviously this is Chinese. There's Thick as Thieves. Here's one called Bombay Boom Bap. Yeah, I enjoyed making these. All right, so those were a lot of fun. And I guess this would have been about halfway through the year or so, maybe right at the end of the summer, I was getting into making my own synth patches. We'll talk more about that here a little bit later. This is called Truth Serum. Before totally changing gears and going back to just straight ahead funky hip-hop dramedy, hip-hop cues, dating show tension cues, and then a trailer cue, then some more hip-hop for sports, and then a whole album of Latin pop that I did in collaboration with Jeff LaPlante. And then finally, wrapping up the year with modern comedy, a new disco funk cue collab with Dale Greisa. And then finally, the cue that we're going to be listening to a little bit later today called Everybody's Hands Go Up with Craig Gilroy. So it's been a really, really busy and eclectic year. Lots of different styles. It kept me on my toes, and it was a little challenging sometimes switching gears, especially as I was digging more into the publishing side of things. So yeah, one of the things that I started doing more was collaborations, and I'm going to be talking more about that and how that's going to affect my 2025 plans. And so that was my creative output, 67 final published cues. And there were more that were written that aren't quite ready, and I'll just roll them into 2024. But one of the slower years that I've had, because usually I average about 2 cues per week. And even up to 3 cues, but I average more than 1, which I know this isn't just a raw numbers game, but I'm really feeling like that was offset from the all of the publishing work that I've started to do, and more on that here in just a second. As far as professionally, as an educator, I was really excited to take on a new role as the department chair for industry and portfolio at Full Sail University in their music production program. There are 3 department chairs, and I'm honored to be one of them. I started that at the very, very tail end of last year. And so it was such a natural type of a move for me up from my course director role, or what other colleges call professors, and moving into helping Full Sail students connect in the industry. It's what I'm doing already, here at 52Qs and on the YouTube channel and everything else. And so bringing that energy specifically as the department chair at Full Sail has been super rewarding, and really looking forward to what 2025 is going to bring for that. As far as 52Qs, the community grew to 777 total members, with 207 new members joining just in 2024. We had something like 50 different Q breakdowns that I posted for our friends and family subscribers. For the friends, families, and neighbor subscribers, we had, I think, 50 live streams where we wrote 25 Qs together. I wrote those in real time. And through the briefing room program, which is a family perk where we have multiple rounds of revisions. You submit cues, I give feedback, you bring them to our weekly feedback sessions. We released 15 albums through the briefing room, and many of them have gone on to get placements. We had some from our Wreck the Halls Christmas album that went out a few weeks ago and has already made air. We had, I think, 2 or 3 placements from this Wreck the Halls album. And so, as always, a huge thanks to all of the publishers that we work with. A special shout out to Dave Pellman, Rob Astor, and Jason Rudd. And thank you so much for your support. Really looking forward to what is coming up next. But we've gotten placements on the NFL with those. We've gotten placements on college sports. We've even gotten placements on Discovery Channel shows, including Operation Undercover. And we keep getting newer writers, or folks who maybe they're not new to the industry, but they just haven't had much success. We've had writers who just, I think last week, made air for the first time. And, while that's not gonna bring in a ton of cash, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's not. One placement on Operation Undercover isn't gonna necessarily pay all your bills, but it's a start. It's a start, and no matter what happens, making music and getting it on television never gets old. And so a huge congratulations to all the folks, many of whom are getting their very first placements ever. And that's what's been going on over in the briefing room. I could not be more excited about the role of the briefing room and my role in it, and pushing into the publishing side of the business has kept me very, very, very busy. I think it's a massive contributing factor to why I only wrote 67 cues this year, and several of those were with collaborators. But again, more on what that means moving forward here in just a minute. As far as personally, just this week, I turned 51. Last year I had my whole big episode on turning 50, and I'm hit with the fact that I'm not 50 anymore. I am now in my 50s. And so that was kind of a milestone, but an even bigger personal milestone for me was that me and Mrs. 52Qs celebrated our 30th anniversary. Of course, that is Shannon. We met in college, and I've told that story, but that was a really, really big milestone. As far as how I have looked to improve myself over this past year, I spent a lot of time digging deeper into synth sound design, to where I even picked up like Phase Plant and picked up Pigments. These were 2 plugins, synth plugins that I want to push into. Of course, I have dreams of releasing sound sets and trying to try to emulate my own sound designer hero, Matt Bowdler at The Unfinished. But that's been really, really cool. And there's a certain amount of pride, when you have a sound that you've made from scratch, whether it's, bringing in a recorded element and making a granular pad out of it, or whether it's designing using oscillators from scratch in Serum or Phase Plan or whatever, there's a real non-trivial amount of pride that happens when you use those in your cues. And so I've really been really enjoying that. I want to get back into it. And so, I'm trying to think, what have been some of the biggest things that I've learned this year? And that synth sound design, of course, pushing even further into video editing. I've pushed further into, using a teleprompter, like right now, I'm not reading a script off a teleprompter, but, I have my notes and everything on the teleprompter, and I have a little remote that I can start it and stop it, and hopefully you don't notice. But as far as, the biggest gear purchase that I've had came pretty darn late, and that is, if you look behind me, yes, there's a drum set over here, an acoustic drum set. That is an electronic drum set. I got a Simmons SD 1250, and I've been really enjoying it. And I've noticed that enough time has passed from retiring from gigging that I've started to miss actually playing. I don't miss loading out. I don't miss the late nights. I don't miss all the time on the road. I don't miss any of that. But what I do actually miss is playing. And so the electronic drum kit has allowed me to do that at all hours. And this goes into my plan for it for 2025, using that as a MIDI controller to control VSTs. So again, more on that here just in a second, because I think the last plugin that I bought was Addictive Drums, specifically Addictive Drums 2. I've really been enjoying its flexibility and how deep it is. It's very much like Superior Drummer, but with the ease of use and the interface of like Native Instruments Abbey Road drums. As far as any other milestones that we've achieved here on the channel, the biggest one that I am so proud of is we've reached 5,000 subscribers. And I know, in the grand scheme of things, 5,000 subscribers, isn't a ton, especially if you compare it to like Mr. Beast or Marquez Brownlee, or even, what Jesse's doing over at Sync My Music and Make Music Income, and Eric, and Stephen Bedall, all of those kind of things. It's great. Their numbers are higher than mine. But I have to believe that the folks who have subscribed are my people. You know what I mean? They resonate with what I'm about, my delivery and all of that. And so I'm very, very, very glad to have you with me. If you are watching me, if you're a longtime subscriber, thank you so much. If you're brand new, thank you for joining us. I really, really hope you enjoy the channel. And so that was essentially my 2024. And I recently did, in my 200 episode, I did a much more in-depth, like my lessons learned. So I'll point you to that video if you want to go even further into like, what have I learned over the course of doing that? That kind of goes all the way back, not just this past year, but a lot of those lessons still apply now. So what's coming up for 2025? Well, I've already talked about this on the podcast, but I'm committing here that 2025 is my year of collaboration. I want to work with as many composers as possible, because I can't output the amount of music that I want to output, and I don't have the bandwidth to do some of the more like intense orchestral programming, Or maybe I just don't play bass or horns or guitar nearly good enough to really be on like a funk record or something. So I am wanting to collaborate with people as much as possible. And it's going to be starting with folks in the community, but I don't know, man, if you're watching this right now, join us over at 52 Qs. And if you have an idea and you need drums and you need some arrangement help and you want to maybe and you have somewhere to publish it, right? Then let's talk. It's my year of collaboration. It's something that I've been kind of dancing around for quite a while, and I need to get better at it. I want to get better at it. And I think that's the way forward, is working with folks who can leverage their superpower with my superpower, and together, Wonder Twins like, or the Justice League or Super Friends or whatever, we can make amazing music, and we can make unique music that focuses and leans into musicianship and performance that is going to stand out in a crowded space, because I think moving forward, I think same old isn't going to work anymore. In fact, Jesse Josephson, was it today? It might have been today or yesterday, released a video over at Sync My Music talking about, 2025 and what needs to change. And like, you just can't be okay at it. You have to be exceptional at it. And that means, studying and practice and doing the reps, but also recognizing where your own limitations lie and how you can get around them. You can brute force your way through your limitations, which means just like taking a guitar off the wall and just practice. Or you can write around them, which means writing cues that don't exploit any of your own weaknesses. So that means that I'm not going to write, me personally, a bunch of shredding guitar music, because I can't do that, right? Or the third option is collaborate. Find people that are amazing, that need what you have to offer, and bringing your talents, your superpower with their superpower, leaning into musicianship and performance, so that you have elevated your cues into something that has a little umami, right? Isn't umami like in Japanese cuisine? It's a savoriness, right? There's just a certain something that stands out. And so I think moving forward, focusing on musicianship and performance across all of my cues, whether I'm writing it myself or working in collaboration, is going to be a priority. And this takes us back to the electronic drum kit and the idea that I'm recording something organic on every cue. But what I don't want to necessarily do is actually trot out a mic package and record the drum set. Not if I can use some of these amazing sounds like from Addictive Drums, or even Logic's drummer, or my Get Good drums, or Abbey Road drums, or whatever, and using the electronic kit to record a performance that then I can bring in and work in all of my MIDI ways that I know how to do. But at the end of the day, it's me. And I did a couple of tests where I took a cue, like the cue from week 51, which was the Funk Salad Annie. I played those in just on a keyboard, right? Finger drum those. But then when I got the kit set up, I did a pass using just the electronic drums. Like top to bottom, 2 minutes straight of me playing, and the subtleties in articulations, in things like ghost notes, things like drum fills, phrasing, inconsistencies that add a lot of realism and organic performance to the cue. It adds a whole nother layer that I think humans connect with. And so, that's a huge reason I got the electronic drums, is I wanted a way to bridge that gap between using plugins and live performance. And so I'm still putting something recorded on every cue, but maybe it's not a shaker, you know, maybe it's a MIDI performance on my electronic drum kit. Now, playing the kit and adjusting to that has been a process, and there's still a learning curve. So that's coming up as far as creatively for 2025. Now, professionally, I have to focus on balancing my time between doing the work of a publisher, which is super exciting. Again, 15 albums in 1 year, that is no small feat. And a huge, massive shout out to Mrs. 52 Q's, who not only does this amazing artwork, that's all Shannon. Disco Ballers just came out yesterday, and that looks fantastic. But she also wrangles all the metadata, and she's fantastic. So a huge shout out to Mrs. 52 Q's. But man, I've got to balance my publishing life and my writing life, because I firmly believe that I have to keep writing. And the less I write, then the more I feel a little disconnected from that creative process. And I found it a little tougher this past year to kind of get that momentum, get that flywheel moving, because it's a lot of start and then a long period of rest while I am not just like hanging out playing World of Warcraft. No, I'm doing reviews and I'm doing rounds of revisions with my composers over in the family. But I've got to balance it out. And it's going to be a priority for 2025 for sure. Oh, so what's coming up in the 52 Qs community? Well, we're not going to be raising the prices of any of the plans. That is still going forward, but we do have some new things that we're going to be bringing out in the new year throughout 2025. And one of those has been by request. Next year, we want to roll out what we are calling accelerators. Now, you probably have heard of our album accelerator, which is a self-paced, video-based course, if you will, for lack of a better term. It's not really a course because it kind of lays out how to write an album from concept to deliverables. And then we do a 90-minute one-on-one planning session. Okay. But the accelerators moving forward are going to be 4-week kind of mini mastermind programs that are going to be focusing on a specific skill like mixing and mastering, or it could be drum programming, or it could be writing in a specific genre. And so those accelerators are going to be coming out next year on top of everything we're already doing. Giving more attention to the almanac, more attention to the publisher spotlight. We've got some really cool ideas that Shannon and I have been bouncing around about some ways to keep you motivated. We've got the mastermind coming across, starting up just next week. As of today's recording, there are seats available, but I think there are only 2 seats left. If you want more about that, you can head to 52qs.com/mastermind. We're also next year doing Expedition 52 again, this time with Sherpas, who are folks from the community who are going to help keep you motivated, along with monthly writing themes and weekly briefs. As far as briefing room, we're going to be looking to expand our working relationships with more libraries, even more albums. We've got cool trailer albums coming up. We've got March Madness coming up. We've got the Masters tournament in golf and the NFL coming up. So all of these briefs are starting to come around. And really excited about what comes next in 2025. But we're not going to be changing a lot of things here. We're not going to be changing, much in terms of the community. But as far as the podcast itself, what are we looking to do differently? Well, one of the things that was pretty popular was when I would feature cues written by members of the community. Not only did it help bring awareness to the community from folks who may not have ever received feedback on their cue before, but it also gave you an opportunity to hear the amazing music that is being written every single week over in the community. And so I was putting that in the podcast, but looking at the stats, I pulled it out and started making it its own video for a while, but that became unsustainable. And I talked about that in my 200th episode, talked about why we kind of broke away from that. But I am bringing that back. I'm bringing that back into the podcast. So the podcast starting next week is going to be one of my cues. So featuring a new cue that I've written, featuring a weekly topic, and featuring a cue review like I would give in the feedback sessions for the family subscribers, or if you ordered a feedback video, through 52cues.com or whatever. So that's going to be the new format coming forward. Now, I'm also looking to kind of tighten the podcast up just a little bit. You might, I'm going to be using the prompter a little bit more, not again, just to kind of keep me on task. As a 25-year veteran of college teaching, I can absolutely rabbit trail and go off on the tangents and just talk and talk and talk and talk. I'm used to lecturing. So I am looking to kind of tighten things up a little bit, which means that the podcast episodes might get a little bit shorter. And like I said, we've got some really cool ideas about some other things coming through the community and through our merch store. So it's just a really, really exciting time. But at the end of the day, I have to give a massive word of thanks, not just to folks who, pay subscription fees, and not to folks who subscribe to the channel, but to you, to everybody out there who is watching, who has spent any amount of time with me over the course of this past year. Please know that I love and appreciate every single one of you. I know that you have a ton of options out there in the world of the internet, and I know I'm not the only voice out there, and nor am I, the right voice out there. We all have different takes and experiences, and the fact that you spend part of your very, very valuable time hanging out with me, I don't take that for granted. So thank you. Sincerely, on behalf of myself and Mrs. 52 Cues, thank you so very much. And that's going to be a wrap on 2024. So we're going to take a really quick break, and an alternate version of me is going to tell you how you can join the community. And when we return, we're going to be listening to Everybody's Hands Go Up, which is an epic hip-hop cue written in collaboration with Craig Gilroy. We'll be right back. Every week I talk about how this episode and the podcast and the community, the channel, would not be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbors, subscribers of 52 Cues, who do pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. And in addition to being thriving members of the community, as well as supporting me and Shannon and everything that we're doing here, they also receive extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds and hundreds of hours of video archives, weekly cue breakdowns, production music almanac, living ebook, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. Now, it's free to join 52 Cues. You can just go to 52cues.com and sign up, be a member of the community. We would love to have you. It will always be free to join the community. But if you've been watching, or if maybe this is your first time, but if you're wondering, is there a way to kind of level up my production music skills in the industry, meeting like-minded, super friendly, very generous composers? Then why don't you think about subscribing? Memberships start at around $4 a month, and we would love to have you. Again, that's 52cues.com. was Everybody's Hands Go Up. That title, obviously a nod to DJ Khaled's All I Do Is Win. It had that kind of vibe to it. And again, that was written in collaboration with Craig Gilroy. We have so many amazingly talented people in the community. And so I really, really enjoyed working with him. And just like with the other folks, I'm sure this won't be the last time that I work with Craig. If you want to see a complete cue breakdown, that will be showing up a little bit later for you family and friends folks in our weekly cue breakdown. And for you family, friends, and neighbors, you can see this cue being put together in the last live stream. So you can check that out for sure. But that's going to do it for me this week. Again, thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me today. Just know that I really do appreciate you. And if you haven't already, click that subscribe, and the bell and all of that. I do make videos every single week, unless, it's a major holiday and I take the week off like we did last week. But you don't want to miss next week, because I'm going to be talking about how you can work smarter and not harder. It's the beginning of the year and you might be thinking, okay, I'm going to do it, whether you're doing the mastermind or whether you're doing Expedition 52 or whether you're just committing to writing one cue per week. You need to have your process kind of worked out, or at least starting to be worked out. So I'm going to give you some of my personal tips on how I work smarter, not harder. So some tips for streamlining your process. So be sure to tune in. You don't want to miss that. But thank you so much. Again, if you have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to start doing more listener or viewer comments in the podcast. If that's something that you would like, then leave a comment below. I do read all of those. We are going to be having Q&A live sessions coming up. We're going to be having more composer quests coming up into the next year. And so all of that is coming up. But that's going to do it. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing week one coming up next week. And I hope that 2024 was everything you wanted it to be. And if not, then just know that 2025 is a new start. And regardless, I still believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2024 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber of 52 Cues, head over to 52cues.com.